Hi Prosenjit. We are waiting for a couple of minutes for a few more people to join and then we'll start the show. Okay, so in the meantime, I would really like to thank everyone, all the followers of this page, for helping us reach this new milestone of 400 followers. It's a very big achievement for all of us. All for me, Amogh and Shweta, and thank you for manifesting all our efforts. And in the future we would like to reach more people with our show, with the stories that we bring to all of you. For that we would really like you to share all our posts, the new reels that we have been sharing, and also it would be really great if you could also send us your valuable feedback, for if you have any opinion, any comments on the show, the format of the show, or if you have any particular stories or any particular issues that you want all of us to discuss. Please do share it to us and help us reach more people in the future. Yeah, actually, Prosenjit, I got your request, so I'll add you in a while. Uh, okay, so yeah, I think let's start. So, welcome all of you to this another episode of season 4 PhD, the philosophical drama, a show where we bring in stories of different journeys of PhD from people all across the world. Today, before I introduce you to the guest, I would like to tell you a little story. So, a couple of months back, I was attending a conference at the University of Liverpool, and it was my first international conference after the pandemic, and I didn't get a chance to go abroad and attend conferences, so it was my first chance. Unfortunately, I was the only person, fortunately or unfortunately, I was the only person from India who was there at the conference, and naturally, I was very overwhelmed and very intimidated. I didn't know anyone at that place, and I remember the first half of the first day, I was just sitting at one corner, completely scared and overwhelmed by all the big shot scientists and the people and the researchers from their groups discuss the science that they were doing, until we reached lunchtime, and there was this one person who came up to me, approached me, and introduced himself and told me about his work and his background, and I realized that he was actually from the same university from which I had done my bachelor's. So it was really nice to find someone not only from my own country but also from my own hometown in that foreign land. And the next couple of days was a roller coaster because I had a really great time. He not only pushed me to ask questions, discuss the science that I was doing with everyone out there, and it was really a motivational experience for me. So we have none other than Dr. Prosenjit Pal, the guy I was talking about in my story. He has done his PhD from University of Calcutta, and his work focused on neuroscience and population genetics. And then he went on to do a postdoc at the University of Dundee, UK, where currently he is working as a senior research associate. So without further ado, I would like to add Prosenjit to the live. Hi Prosenjit.
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry for the camera one. Sometimes I becomes technically challenged.
No, it's fine. You look great. Everything is perfect. So, first of all, thank you for accepting the invitation, my formal invitation to come and chat with me. I'm sure we had a lot of discussions at the conference, but it's a great opportunity to share uh, to others. One second. So, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know if it's because were you using a headphone before this?
I was using a headphone, but I don't know. I cannot like it switched to the mobile, so that's why I just switch it. Should I
I
switch it on
No,
or
that's
move?
fine. I think now
Okay.
it's okay. Initially, there was a little bit of feedback. I mean, I can hear my own voice from the other side
Oh,
a little, but that's okay. I think we'll proceed and then figure out if there's a lot of problem. We'll maybe you can just reduce the volume of your device a little bit. It might help.
is that okay?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. It's fine.
Okay, great.
Yeah. So thank you for joining the live, and hopefully we'll have a great discussion, and we'll get to hear. Okay, it's from my side, is it? Is it still there? Please let me know if there is any feedback still, because right now I think I'm not
Better.
getting any. Yeah, yeah. Okay. So,
My pleasure, Sukanya.
yeah, yeah. And yeah, hopefully we'll get to know about your stories of your PhD today. So, starting, I would like to go back in time and ask you about how did you land up doing a PhD?
So coming to that point, I have to give you a brief background because it's a long story back, but I'll try to make it short. So in childhood, when I saw my grandma, I used to see her talking to someone. Like there is no one, but she was talking to someone and arguing and sometimes laughing. And I was always curious, what's that? What she is doing? Was the reason of doing that? I was very like 6, 7 years old that time. So that's the one reason. Then the second reason, when I grew up and then started watching movies with my parents and sisters. So watching a emotional movie, a sad incident, I become very emotional. And I can see my parents and they were just quite normal. They are not reacting too much. Then my sister started saying that they are all actors. They are just acting. Why are you getting so emotional? So the stimuli is the same, but we are reacting in different way. Why? And then later on, when I started realizing about myself, then I started thinking, what's the cause of that? Was the reason of attraction? Why people attracted to each other? Was the basic of that mechanism? So then gradually I interested to the brain. So I thought that no, I need to know what's going on in the brain. So when I started looking for my bachelor's after my +2, there was very limited options doing bachelor's in neuroscience. In India, there are some options, but I wanted to be in Calcutta because of the financial background. So I thought that, okay, there is no option, then what to do? Do a bachelor's in zoology. Because in zoology, we can see the whole spectrum. It includes molecular biology, parasitology, and there are in like vertebrate and invertebrate zoology, you can see the anatomy of brain, other organs as well. And then after finishing that, I started looking for my master's. Can I do a master's in neuroscience? And Kolkata. So that was the things that the department from where I did my master's is just started. We were the fourth batch.
Okay.
So I joined masters there. And there, during that period, I got a chance to go to National Brain Research Center for an internship. That was the turning point because then I realized that I like this, doing science,
Yeah.
trying to address one question, designing experiments, spending time more in the lab, weekend, late night, discussing it with others. So that was the first turning point when I realized, yes, I want to do a PhD. I want to pursue my career in PhD. And then I come back to Calcutta, and then I started talking to my PhD supervisor, who was the director of our institute that time. And she said that, okay, if you are qualifying the net, then you are welcome to my lab. And I didn't want to delay my time. Again, it's just because of the financial condition. I had to support my parents. So I just quickly started my PhD after my master's. So that's the story behind of my PhD.
Yeah, but as you said about financial conditions, I'm sure that you must have faced a lot of pressure with respect to doing something else, getting a job after your masters, or because obviously at that point of time sometimes you have options that pay more.
Yeah.
So combating all those, getting into doing a PhD, how did you convince people
It's, I
around you
think
and also
I'm
your
I was quite blessed because of my parents. They never pushed me. They never, I mean, from childhood, they never asked me, okay, you have to be the top, like in your school, you have to be first. No, never. They said that just try to do something which you feel like to do. Just follow that. You don't need to give us money. You don't need to do a fancy job to earn money quickly. Because at that time, many people did, like many of my friends, they started after bachelor's, like BTech actually. Many people did engineering. They started earning money. My mom, that they never compared actually. They never said that, okay, they are earning money, you have to do that. No, I didn't. I did. I'm really blessed that they never pressurized me about the money, and that's why I grew up in a very, like, with my freedom, with my own thoughts, with my own feeling that yes, I want to do this. I want to do this. There is no pressure. I think that is very important, having a supportive parents.
That's really nice. So there's a message from I think Anurag. He says that glad to see you, Prosenjit, a true PhD journey, inspirational. So yeah, so as you said that you really love doing experiments, spending time in the lab, but I think it's one side of or the one way of looking at it. I'm sure you did a PhD in a university and you faced a lot of. There are pros and cons of doing a PhD in a university. So what were those and how did you go about solving all these issues?
So if you're thinking about the disadvantages of doing a PhD, of course there will be. I think the world is not ideal. There will be some advantage and disadvantage. You have to work on how you can change your disadvantage situation to an advantage one. I always try to do that. And I think that's again from my parents. Then they said that, okay, there will be adverse situation. Try to change them to in favor of you. Can you do that? If you can do that, try to do that. So I'm just giving you an example why I'm saying in this way. So when I was doing my PhD, the main problem is doing PhD in university if the funding is a like a big problem. Designing fancy experiment, that's a limitation. You have to think in a very small restricted experiments you can do because of the funding problem. We didn't have that much of pressure in my PhD lab, but my PhD lab, my supervisor is like, at the very end of our career, like going to retire soon. So you can understand, you can imagine what's the limitation. But then what I started doing, I started talking to other people, and that again my supervisor's advice, pushing me to present my work, even if it is small, make a poster and present it in any small conferences, local. You don't need to give up or to get a prize. That's not the aim. The aim is to spread your words, to show what you are trying to discover, and then if at any point anyone can, like, you can make a communication, whether you can make a collaboration. That's the main thing. So I try to convert my disadvantage to an advantage. I started talking. So one of my project was very struggling at the beginning, and then I started talking to through these conferences. So the work ultimately was collaborated with Indian Statistical Institute, uh, Shaha Institute, Nuclear Physics, and then Indian Institute of Chemical Biology, IISc. So I got three people from these three departments independently without my supervisors just tried to introduce me, that's it. And then later on, to carry on to pursue that thing, I think that's motivated me a lot. Always try to convert your cons to your to any pros, to any advantage stuff. Just make yourself more positive about life, about, just try to avoid thinking about the disadvantage more. uh, that's my
That's a
suggestion.
wonderful way to look at it. But I'm sure working with three different people at the same time, it must have been like, how is it
Sorry about
like?
this.
Yes. I mean, like working with three different people at the same time, working with three different perspectives at the same time. Like, how was it? Was it confusing? Was it, how did
Not
you
really,
manage?
because I try to focus on people who are, like expert in that field. And I tried to pinpoint my question. So this is my question. I want to address this question. And precisely I asked them to help me how they can help me. And
Mhm.
that's it. I didn't have to do a lot like convincing or like forcing, or it's just mutual conversation, and then they tried to say, okay, you need to do this experiment. Okay, I'm fine. If you can help me with antibody, with the technique, I will go to IICB, I'll go to the other institute to get that one. And in that way, I think it's just at the end of the day, you have to come to a point where everybody agrees that experiments, what you are trying to. First of all, you have to make your question very strong. That yes, this is my question, and I think this could be the possible experiments that can give us the, solution, the result. So yeah, it was not that hard for me at that time.
Really, like it's amazing because I mean it's very rare to see such maturity because most of us fumble with all these issues that you talked about right now. So like I'm sure there have been days where you felt like you didn't feel this positive. I'm sure you've had such days. A day where nothing works in the lab, and then how would you cope up with? I mean, what helped you bring this positivity back to your
I
mind
got
and
that. So I mean, for both of my PhD and postdoc, I'm talking about now PhD. I'll come to the postdoc but later. But the strategy is similar. Don't try to focus on only one project. Try to convince your supervisor that you can do more than one thing. Because what I'm saying this thing, like of course you have one question, but in you can make some subdivision of that questions and planning one experiment and then another experiment and try to do it simultaneously. So one experiment, if you're getting a negative result or if you're getting frustrated, at least you have another experiment which is giving you something positive to keep the cycle going on. So this project that I said that I collaborated, it was a failure from the very beginning. 6 months failed, but I was doing something else at the same time. Again, I paused that experiment. I didn't pursue that. When I see that 6 months I'm not getting anything concrete, just don't do anything. Just give a pause. Then after 1 year, when I started talking about my other part of the work in different conferences, then I made all those links and then, okay, I can start it again. So after 1 year, I went back and I thought that, okay, now I think I am in that place. So what I'm trying to say, you have to motivate yourself at some point. Like supervisors, they will be busy with their other PhD students. They have other responsibilities. So at the end of the day, probably if you really like want to be in academia, you have to motivate a lot yourself. You cannot get just in a negative emotions, just getting a negative result. I know that the feeling. There were moments where, oh, bad day, none of the experiment worked. But yeah, self motivation is very much needed in those situations.
Right, right. That's amazing. Like, I think that's one of the big reasons for such a big dropout rate in PhD because most of the people can't persevere through this. It's very, very difficult.
Yeah.
So, I think whatever you're saying, it's infectious because, yeah, as I said, it's most of us don't have that maturity. We don't really think that deep, and we get bogged down by these small failures, and it's very, very important. I think it's very important that you have to motivate yourself because even to accept help from people in such situations, you have to have that state of mind to
Yep.
accept, right? Because many cases you try to motivate people, like it has happened with me, like I've tried to motivate my friends, but they are not in that state of mind to accept it. Like in such a case, I think it's very, very important that you start pushing yourself and you start motivating yourself. Yeah, and that's really great. So now I would like to switch gears and ask about how from so I'm sure working in a university, it has disadvantages in terms of the amount of exposures or in terms of amount of opportunities that you get as compared to the other big tier institutes of the country. So from that, how did you go about for your postdoc applications, and how did you break all these shackles and come out of the country and then expose yourself to all this different kind of science that's going on around? So if you could tell us about that.
Great. That's that's so basically when at the very end of my PhD, when I thought that okay, now the story is almost at the end, I should wrap up and I should think about what next. But the main problem, as you mentioned, it's university, and not again, it's not a very big. I mean, it is a big university. We have plenty of different departments, and we are producing loads of good students who are spreading throughout India and outside of India. But still, it was there. There was a limitation. What to do next, and how I can do that. So I am lucky that in my department at that time, one of my senior, he applied for a fellowship called Fulbright to go to US for 9 months. So that is part of your PhD work. It has to be your part of your PhD work. And that somehow motivated me. I didn't have my passport at that time. And I started thinking, can I do that kind of stuff? I asked my supervisor, will you be like, this is another, my supervisor was supportive in that way because there are many ego problem and, some supervisors, they can say, why it's like you can do it in our institute, why going in a foreign country and doing this. But she said that if you want, you can try. So I thought, okay. That's a good. Then I started looking for universities, like specifically the work that I was planning to do outside, very precisely. So I'm just giving the example. The protein is pink one. So I started looking at in US who are there working on pink one, and who are very intermediate steps, not very high profile scientists, like established scientists, not very young, somewhere intermediate steps. And I found out that Ulf Springer, he is working on pink one, and many good publications are there. At the same time, in UK, there is also another scientist, Miratul Mukit, who was also working on, but the fellowship is only for US, not for UK. So I decided, okay, let's apply for the US because in terms of the application, the US one comes first, and then later on the UK one, the advertisement wise, the later on was the UK one. I didn't get the Fulbright one. And there were flaws in my application form. But Ulf, I just sent an email to Ulf. That's it. He replied positively. Like he was totally agreed to, like you can come and you can pursue your work if you are getting the fellowship. Everything was like settled. But I didn't get the fellowship. The problem was that, I mean, renowned lab, good lab, but the problem was when I was feeling that time I didn't have any like first authorship paper or like the publication part was I just kept completely blank because I just told the truth. Then one of my seniors they started saying that just don't leave that completely blank because this kind of like applications they first it's not that manually people are screening it. There are some computerized screening taking place. So when some computer cannot see that's a gap space, they just rejected. They're not going through your project at all. So I took that very seriously, and what I did, there were papers in like manuscript in preparation in that kind of phase, and we have a title. I presented them in different conferences. So I made like all like the Word file of all those experiments and make a title and then put that into the publication column that they are in preparation when I'm applying for the other fellowship, which is Newton Bhabha Fellowship. So apart from that, the lab was also very renowned in UK. So I got that fellowship, and I moved to UK for it was like for 4 months. But I asked my supervisor, Miratul, can I stay another? Because my visa was permitted for 6 months, so can I stay extra? And I'm fortunate that he paid for my like stay where I stayed. He paid for that, and I stayed because the project was interesting, and that was the link. So when I went back, and the good part is that in his lab, so we had two lab meetings, one with his own lab, another one with the director of the institute. That was very challenging and good at the same time because he asked loads of questions and very like in-depth basic question related to your work. But he liked that when I presented my work, and he saw me working day in and day out because for me 4 months I have to wrap up everything by that like in that short period. We conversed and at the end when I was leaving the institute, he asked me, what is your next plan? Do you want to plan a postdoc? And Miratul as well, what is your next plan? Do you want to stay in academia? What do you think? What you want to do? And then I come back India, started preparing, submitting my thesis, and I was thinking what to do. Should I go back again to the same institute? Will it be a good decision? Because Miratul asked me to join some high institute, like, okay, you have already seen what we are doing. Now you have to make your level very high, try for Oxford, Cambridge, if you UK, or MIT or Harvard. I said, no, those are like, I cannot jump from Calcutta University to, it's impossible. I thought at that time. I think that's the part of the imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
But I realized that, okay, this is the practicality, and moving to US it would be difficult because I didn't have my degree. So I just contacted one of the postdoc from the director's lab, and he said that just send an email to him, just asking that whether he can help you, like whether there is any position open in his lab. And so I'm talking about Dario, my present supervisor, postdoc supervisor. When I sent him an email, he just said that, okay, do a Skype call and then let's see what we can do. And that's it. That was the beginning of this transition from PhD to postdoc. Then we had a chat. He's working on a different protein, but the disease is same. So basically, I'm working on Parkinson's disease. So PhD is mostly focused on mitochondrial pathway, and then he is working on LARC to a different gene, a different protein. Its function is quite different, but same. It is a kinase. And then we had a good chat, and then he said that just let me know when you can join. That was the transition from PhD to postdoc.
There's a comment from Amogh. He has written that such PIs should be celebrated. And you have been really fortunate to have such a supportive PI. I'm sure that you must have felt that it's impossible to jump from the university to the Ivy League colleges. But if there's someone who makes you think that's possible, I
Yes.
think it really pushes you.
But at the same time, you have to keep in your mind when you are talking about people, again, it's not that they are all flawless. No, they have their own flaws. But what you have to do, you have to be selective. You have to think about what is positive in those people. So my PhD supervisor, she's always helped us to be patient. So I'll talk about these 3 P's, which is there in the advertisement, that the patience I learned from my PhD supervisor. She's always saying that, if you really want to achieve something, you have to work hard, but at the same time, you have to be patient. And from my postdoc supervisor, I learned something else, which I'll come to later on.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk to you about this publication. So, as you said that you filled the form with the title and you moved ahead for your postdoc, but then you had to publish remotely, like when you were away, when you were doing your postdoc. So, how was it? Like, it must have been very difficult. So, tell us about how that happened.
It was really terrible in that sense, because when I came to UK for the postdoc, I got more than 5 or 6 projects, I guess. And already my postdoc supervisor, he knew that I am kind of workaholic person. I am working day in and day out. So I was just getting puzzled what to do. Where should I focus on? I need to write those papers because I need those papers to defend my thesis, because at that time I didn't even defend my thesis. It was just I submitted my thesis and they will give us, because in Calcutta University the system is a bit different. You have to defend, then you can submit your thesis and then you will get your degree. So you have to do a 5,000, that's the report, and then you have to present.
Right.
But then 6 months period, after 6 months period,
Yeah, I'm there.
yeah,
I'm there.
after 6 months you can submit your thesis. And then university will take time to give you the degree, and then there was pandemic at that time. But yeah, but I did that. I realized that I have to divide my time in such a way that, okay, daytime used for the experiments, for the postdoc work, and nighttime try to concentrate on finishing those papers that I am working. I have already done those works. And I think somehow I managed. I don't know whether I did it well, but I managed to keep balance in both. And another thing you have to keep in your mind, that cultural shock. When you are coming, when you are going abroad for postdoc, so I came here before, but that's for a very short period. I was just working, working, and working. There was no social life. But later on, the postdoc, it's for 3 years. So it's not that from the very first day I had all those pressures, but gradually it came. But it was not very easy. The cultural shock was a lot. We are different in different way, and something is like in terms of thought processing, in terms of how to talk. But I got a very positive, and from my previous, from Miratul's labs people, this is that they are calling me Pipal, from Prosenjit, P and
Okay.
Pal. They say, Pipal, you are absolutely fine. You are more than generous, more than kind. You don't need to be always that kind. Sometimes you have to be a bit tough. But yeah, that you have to keep in your mind, that the cultural shock will be always there, but you have to just work on it. But I try to keep balance. I try to writing stuffs at night time and focusing on the experiments. And I think you have to be clear in that part with your present supervisor as well, because it's not that they will judge you or they will stop doing that, because they know that they also came through that process, right? They will never. But if you are not talking or if you're not sharing that part, that why there will be a little bit of lacking, but why, he or she should know that why, that I'm working on that part because that's my PhD work. I need to publish, and I'm sure they will understand. I mean,
Yeah,
in my
that's
case,
really
they understood.
no, that's we often forget that they have also been on the other side of the
Yeah.
table. We've had episodes in this show where we've had like both the supervisors and the
Oh,
students, and then really interesting ones, which so often we get scared and we are like hesitant to talk about it. So I think that's a very important message to everyone. And then finally coming back to the caption or the theme for this episode, that is the 3 P's of PhD that we had talked about. And I would really like if you would share it to all the people who are out there.
so the 3 P is what I think that it is very important to focus on. The first P is your passion. I think we are all here because of that part, that component, the passion. We have that passion. That's why we are doing science. The second part is the learning process, and the third part is learning process. Is the persistence or perseverance. You have to be persistent. You have to, like, you are focusing on something, but you can deviate. You can fluctuate. You can focus on, like, you have to, whatever you are doing, you have to keep that persistence continuing. And the third part is my PhD supervisor's thing, the patience. That is very important, very, very, very important, that you have to be patient. There will be your time, like you will get your turn. It's just, can you keep the patience until that time? And you have to practice that, because it's very, very difficult to keep patience when you are not getting result for long. Because PhD, postdoc, whatever, science is 95% failure. only 5% who are getting success. So you can imagine that how much patience you have to keep to be focused on that 5%, not that 95%. So
That's
that's three
amazing.
P's.
Yeah, yeah, I'm really glad that you shared it to all of us, and I'm sure, uh, yeah, we could actually save this part as one of the clips for people to, go through or like have a watch whenever they're having a bad day in
Great.
the lab. I think it's very important. Thank you so much for this. Next, we would move into this. Slightly different section that we have started from this season. So we have been playing this game called Rapid Liar for the last couple of episodes, but today I have decided to like change things up a little bit. So so this part it will be rapid, so you have to answer fast.
Okay, very quickly.
Pressure. Yeah, there'll be two parts. The first part of it is I will give you one sentence and you have to come up with one word or phrase to describe that. And it's all related to PhD, so I'm sure you'll have a very good answer, just
I'll
like
try
all
my
my
best.
questions. Yeah. So the first question is one reason to start a PhD.
Curiosity.
Oh, okay. One reason to stay in academia.
Same, curiosity.
Okay. Role of your supervisor during a PhD.
So in my PhD or in overall it should be.
You can answer both if you want to.
Okay. I want to answer the overall. I think empathy, which is very important. Sometimes PIs, they couldn't understand the situation of the student, what they are passing through. They have seen the failure, but sometimes I don't know, they forgot or somehow they are missing that part. So empathy is very important. We have plenty of renowned scientists who doesn't have that part. They are not very empathizing with their students. That's very important, I think.
The most important aspect of a successful PhD. What, according to you, is the most important aspect when you call a PhD a successful journey or a successful PhD?
Well, that's it's very difficult to explain it in one word or phrase.
I know
Uh,
that's exactly why I had. See, you
I
are
think
answering all
I
these
think
questions so easy.
if you
So I have to give
if
you
you can
both
learn
of
the
them.
patient if you can
Yeah,
learn the patient's part, that's the most big
right.
achievement of your PhD, that you learn how to be patient.
Okay. And finally, if not a PhD, then what else?
Oh,
Like an alternate
pl-
career.
plenty of, because I am very much cultural, so I'll start writing poetry. Don't know people will listen to it or not, or they'll read it or not. Singing, art, like painting, plenty of. But I don't know whether they will give me money.
You should start exploring. You should try it and see if people are paying you for this. Okay, so the next part of the rapid section of this part. So I'll give you two options and you have to choose one.
Okay.
Okay. So given a chance to do a PhD again with all the wisdom and experience that you have right now, would you like to do it in India or abroad?
I think India. The
Okay.
reason is to get the challenges to make myself, sharpening the pencil. I need to, yeah.
Okay. Okay. So, running your supervisor through all your planned experiments or doing experiments secretly and then presenting them as a surprise.
The second one.
Okay.
I mean, I
So,
did that personally. So, because they are busy, I mean, I can understand. You can get an input from them and but if you are not doing anything wrong, you will not learn.
right.
So, do it yourself and then try to troubleshooting it and then show it the entire thing. What you have done wrong, and then you troubleshoot it, and then so you will learn in
Okay.
that way. That's
Okay.
again my opinion. Your opinion
Yeah. Yeah.
can be completely different.
So, what according to you makes a better PhD? Getting all results in 3 to 4 years or troubleshooting your way through 5 to 6 years?
Time matters. After coming back UK, I think the first option, because PhD, whatever I said, that's true, but at the same time, it's a it's a process of learning some techniques. It's not that you can discover like very people discovered many things in their PhD, but everybody were not that lucky. So as soon as you're trying to finish that part, try to move on, and because science will be never, it's unstoppable. It's not, it's a, it's you cannot make a complete story. It is a never ending story for any project. So I think 3 to 4 years, I'll prefer to do that. I couldn't do it. I took 5, 6 years. It's different reasons, but yeah.
Okay, so which lab would you prefer to join? A well-established lab with a busy supervisor, or a new lab with a supervisor with full attention? Who gives you full attention?
From personal experience, it's completely other way around. From my personal experience, I always choose the labs which are busy and who are experienced. But it depends again. You have to study what you are trying to address based on that question, which lab is suitable for you. It doesn't matter whether it is experienced or, but you have to keep in your mind if you are joining an established lab, again, it varies PI to PI. But most of the cases, it happens that PIs, they are not like, they cannot give time to for like discussing. It will be like once in 6 months or something
Yeah.
like that. But my present supervisor is super busy, but he is looking at everyone, PhD postdocs, almost every day. Not every day, but yeah.
Yeah.
So it varies person to person. But I think I personally I'll prefer to go which is like establishing lab, not very high profile or established lab already. Because
Okay.
then you both the PI and student can learn together.
Right, right. Absolutely. And finally, which would you choose? Attending a highly rated conference in your neighboring institute, or attending an average rated conference at a beautiful destination?
Ah, beautiful destination. No, no. I think the first option. It's
Really?
fine to explore to keep your social life, but yeah, I'll prefer the first one.
Really? You really don't have to be that workaholic. Sometimes take a vacation.
But that's me. That's what I'm saying. That I mean,
I know. Just that.
throughout these conversations, what I said, it's all my personal opinion, and things can change. And probably something I have said already have been said by others. I didn't say anything new. Probably the new thing is that my experience that I shared with you people. That yes, PhD is not very simple thing. It's not a very like simple choice to opt. You need to keep in your mind it is a hard path, and that 3 Ps is the ultimate to achieve the goal. Keep your
Yeah,
dream high.
right. Thank you so much, Prosenjit. It has been a very rewarding 45 minutes or 40 minutes of conversation that we had. We planned for a shorter conversation, but I knew it's going to stretch. And I'm sure everybody had there are a series of oh my God that are coming for your answers. But yeah, yeah. Anyway, it was a really nice conversation. Thank you for taking time out and deciding and like agreeing to do this. And it was a lot of fun. I hope you had a nice time. And we'll use. Okay, someone has written the fourth piece, Prosenjit. So we'll use. I'm sure people can get back to this episode, watch it. It's a very motivational conversation that we had. I myself would go back to this conversation and listen to all your experiences and your stories. I think it's really important that we focus on looking at the good sides also. Sometimes we are faced with a lot of adversities, but you have to, find your way through and look at the bright sides. And your optimism is infectious, and I think it infected all of us today. So thank you for joining, and hope we get to meet and talk again very soon.
Thank you very much, Sukanya. It was really pleasure to meet you. Like very coincidental in a conference. I never expected that one Bengali will be there and we could talk in my own
Yeah,
language, like in a foreign country, in a conference.
yeah.
It's all my pleasure. I really like the way you are addressing your problem. You recently submitted your thesis. Good luck for that. I'm pretty sure you'll get your degree. soon, and I'm sure that we will learn something from you at some point. You will tell your experience, your story to all of us.
Thank
And
you so
the
much.
last thing is
Thank
that try to be positive. That's the fifth P. Positivity is very important.
you. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you so much. With that, we come to the end of this episode. And thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Prosenjit, for joining. And we'll be coming live again in another 2 weeks' time with Amogh with another special episode. Till then, take care and bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.